Have you ever opened your banking app late at night? Like random Tuesday, you're brushing your teeth and you just stare at the number? It's not zero, it's not terrible, but it's not moving. You get paid, you save a little, you invest a little, you try to be responsible, and yet somehow 5 years go by and you're thinking, wait, why don't I feel further ahead? You're working hard, you're not reckless, you're not blowing money on yachts. So why does wealth feel like something that happens to other people? I think about this stuff way too much, honestly. My name is Nick, and I spend an unhealthy amount of time obsessing over money. Not just how to earn it, but why some people quietly build wealth almost effortlessly, while others grind for decades and never feel safe. And the more I dig into it, the more I realize most people aren't failing because they're lazy or dumb. They're failing because they don't understand one quiet rule, the 8% rule. And no, it's not magic, it's not guaranteed, it's not perfect. But if you really understand it, like really understand it, it changes how you see your job, your savings, your investments, your future. It changes your patience. It changes your stress. It changes your timeline. By the end of this, you're going to look at your money differently. You're going to understand why the first $10,000 feels impossible, why $100,000 changes everything, and why at some point your money starts working harder than you do. And once that clicks, you can't unsee it. When people hear 8%, they think investment returns, but that's surface level. The real power of 8% is compounding. Let me show you something simple. If you invest $10,000 and it grows at 8% per year, year 1, $10,800. Year 2, $11,664. Year 10, about $21,589. Year 20, about $46,610. Year 30, about $100,626. Notice something? It doesn't grow in a straight line. It bends upward. At first, it feels slow, almost insulting. You put in $10,000. After a year, you get $800. Cool, that's red for a month. But by year 30, that same $10,000 becomes over $100,000. You didn't add more. You didn't hustle harder. Time did the work. And here's where most people mess up. They quit in year 3 because the curve is flat at the beginning. Imagine pushing a car. The first few feet are hard. You're straining. Nothing's happening. But once it starts rolling, you almost have to chase it. 8% is the rolling. Wealth isn't built by dramatic moments. It's built by acceleration. Let's be honest. Saving your first $10,000 feels like climbing Everest in sneakers. You're paying rent, car insurance, groceries, maybe student loans. And someone online is like, just invest $500 a month. With what money? The beginning is brutal because you're doing all the work yourself. Your savings are tiny. 8% of a tiny number is still tiny. If you have $2,000 invested, 8% is $160 a year. That doesn't feel life-changing. But here's the shift. The first $10,000 isn't about money. It's about installing the machine. Because once you hit $10,000, the game changes psychologically. You stop thinking, can I save? You start thinking, how fast can I grow this? And at 8%, $10,000 earns $800 a year. Then you add more and more. It snowballs. The first stage is human-powered. The second stage is system-powered. That's the difference. Here's something that sounds weird. An 8% return over time is more powerful than an 8% raise. Let's say you make $60,000 a year. You get an 8% raise. That's $4,800 more annually before taxes. Feels good. Now let's say you have $200,000 invested at 8%. That's $16,000 a year, without asking your boss, without negotiating, without stress. Which one feels more secure? Salary is linear. Investing is exponential. Your job pays you once. Your investments pay you every year on themselves. This is when the shift happens. At around $300,000 invested, 8% is $24,000 per year. That's a second income. At $500,000, that's $40,000 per year. That's many people's entire salary. And suddenly, you're not desperate. You don't fear layoffs the same way because the machine is humming. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people understand compounding. They just don't have the patience for it. We live in a world of overnight everything. Overnight fame, overnight crypto millionaires, overnight business gurus. But 8% is boring. It requires 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and that's where people quit. They invest for 3 years, the market dips, they panic. They switch strategies, they try day trading, they chase hype. It's like digging 5 shallow wells instead of one deep one. Compounding rewards consistency, not brilliance. You don't need to outsmart the market. You need to outlast yourself. And honestly, that's harder. Something magical happens at $100,000 invested. At 8%, that's $8,000 a year, or about $667 per month, without working extra hours, without overtime, without side hustles. It's not enough to retire, but it's enough to feel momentum. This is where acceleration becomes visible. If you keep contributing, that $100,000 becomes $200,000 much faster than your first $100,000. Why? Because now your money is doing real lifting. Imagine building a snowman. The first handfuls of snow barely stick, but once the base gets big, it rolls itself. That's $100,000. It's the tipping point where compounding becomes tangible. Here's something subtle. Once you understand 8%, every purchase has a future value attached to it. That $5,000 vacation, invested at 8% for 30 years, becomes over $50,000. That $30,000 car upgrade, that's potentially $300,000 in 30 years. This isn't about guilt. It's about awareness. You start asking different questions. Is this worth what it costs today? And also, is this worth what it costs future me? Wealthy people don't necessarily earn more at the beginning. They just respect time differently. They understand 8% is not just growth, it's transformation. There's a moment, and it's different for everyone, when your investments start earning more in a year than you save from your job. Let's say you invest $15,000 per year. At some point, your 8% return becomes greater than $15,000 annually. Now your money contributes more than you do. That's when wealth feels inevitable. It's no longer fragile, it's self-sustaining. And eventually, if you let it run long enough, 8% on $1 million is $80,000 per year. That's not luxury yacht money, but it's freedom. And freedom is underrated. The 8% rule isn't about predicting markets. It's about respecting time. It's about understanding that wealth is less about intensity and more about duration. You don't need genius. You need consistency. You don't need perfect timing. You need staying power. The first years feel pointless. The middle years feel hopeful. The later years feel unstoppable. That's the journey. If you're at $1,000 saved, keep going. If you're at $20,000 and feel like it's slow, keep going. If you're at $200,000 and wondering when it gets easier, you're closer than you think. Because at 8%, time becomes your business partner. And unlike most partners, it never asks for a raise.